Attack on Titan's final episode of its seemingly unending final season's second part was pretty good. The beginning was most definitely a change of pace from the action-oriented battle we had received with the episode before, and I can't help but feel like this episode was particularly enjoyable because of a very simple factor: Eren. Eren was not only in this episode, but was a driving force, and that's on account of most of the episode's narrative being from the past, the expedition of the scouts into the world beyond the walls, and besides Eren, of course, having Sasha around is great too. Now, for the most part, these islanders were not at all prepared for this far more technologically advanced world, so suffice to say they weren't all too well prepared to avoid standing out, and this sequence provided a bit of comedy that we haven't really experienced in quite some time with this story, so it was pretty nice to see. Yet as his friends marveled at the otherwise unseen world around them, Eren remained to himself, spacing out. For the rest of them, it was their first time being in such a space, making it pretty much like a wonderland. Yet for Eren, on account of his father's memories, this was a world he had seen rather in depth several years prior. And at that, beyond the surface level grandeur of it all, Eren has of course observed such scenes from the perspective of the oppressed, so it's not exactly the most pleasant experience I'd imagine. And when Armin and Mikasa approached him about their current location, as opposed to possessing that same hope and wonder he had as a child, for his and all their sakes, Eren felt the need to remind them of where they truly were, on the other side of the sea, in the land of their enemies. And I think overall this whole first touchdown scene is so great at encapsulating the possibility of peace while also emphasizing that which keeps them distanced and on opposing sides, which is only furthered by the distance between Eren and his friends. Now, this Levi clown scene was really something else. A fear of clowns is rather common, I suppose, but a funny thing about me, I absolutely love clowns, creepy or otherwise, so I was very happy with this. And for whatever reason, the studio decided to go crazy with the scene and make it several times better than the manga version. Now, the face Mikasa made after having ice cream for the first time was the most adorable thing ever. I mean, even before the walls were breached and she was a child, she didn't really smile like this. That joy of hers was something she immediately sought to share with Eren, but again, the vibes were off. And at least in retrospect, Mikasa could now recognize the signs of Eren's resignation from the collective jubilee. Now, the uncomfortable reality would begin to show from beneath the surface in only a matter of moments as Levi apprehended a child who had pickpocketed Sasha. And ever so swiftly, the jovial tone of ice cream and clowns shifted to one of xenophobia and racial persecution. And to make matters worse, such things were not limited to only verbal berating, but also the desire for physical violence against this, again, child. The severity of their civilian-based persecution seems rather proportionate to that of their military's treatment of Eldians, which, like many other things in the series, may serve as a social commentary of sorts in regards to violence perpetrated by the so-called justice system, subsequently skewing the concept of justice possessed by the populace, or at least the majority, into being proportionately cruel. And there is the element of considering him to potentially be an Eldian devil at play here, sure, but as we come to later understand, this boy is simply a refugee to which a relatively baseless animosity has been placed. He is a thief, sure, but a victim of circumstance and necessity all the same. Circumstances previously perpetuated by the oppressor. And for as disturbing as such prospects may be, it shouldn't be lost on viewers that such behavior was once a commonality in only just the time of most of our grandparents even. Not to mention the fact that such deplorable behavior may still be seen across the globe in various regions and territories. Yet fascinatingly enough, despite having and being willing to resort to extreme violence for their own beliefs, our Eldians from the walls, as fellow downtrodden peoples, would come to the aid of this child despite being responsible for the attention on him to begin with. The exploration of morality in this series is something I have always found to be so fascinating. It's generally easier to approach for the masses and condemn within the confines of fiction, despite an unfortunate lack of gravity where one may argue it truly matters. Now, even after saving the child, despite everyone else being at ease to an extent, there was certainly a peculiar air of dread to be found in Eren's constant staring and rather void facial expressions. Later, we would find ourselves within the Azumabito estate, where Kiyomi would provide a bit of insight in regards to the recent strides in blood testing technology and the ability to discern Eldians from others. Yet apparently during the height of the Eldian Empire's reign, the possession of such blood was a sign of great dignity and elitism. But of course, upon its collapse, these once highly regarded figures were then globally exiled and shunned. The desires of this collective were ambitious at best and woefully naive at worst. They sought to find safety and camaraderie in the rhetoric of others, but soon realized themselves to be depicted as the world's ultimate evil, not to be confused with their domesticated Eldian kinfolk. But jumping back a bit, as this was in the process of being planned, Eren snuck away to visit the home of the young pickpocket, what was a series of tents erected for the sake of the homeless. And when Eren saw this, he wept, and likely did so thanks to the future he foresaw for them. These people and the lives they led were not all too dissimilar from that of his own, imposed upon them by the rest of the world, a case of stolen freedom. And here, Eren would seek to address Mikasa's feelings for him. He'd ask her why she cared so much about him. Yet tragically, his question would be structured in such a way that it was one or the other. Because he had saved her as a child, or because they were family. The directness of this certainly caught Mikasa off guard, and in her panic, she expressed that they were family, what was no doubt a very important moment for Eren and his preceding course. This, to be quite honest, was more than likely a crossroads for him. This was when he solidified his path. But at the very least, he would have one last good night with his friends. He drank and partied with them along with these foreign strangers, what was a unifying display of those trampled upon by the world. They didn't share a common tongue, but like something straight out of One Piece, came together in harmony as they partied and drank together. It's both beautiful in a sense, yet terribly sad to see with the context of Eren's shift in mind. But after the failure at the seminar, Eren left them, leaving them with only but a letter regarding his entrustment of Zeke. But now, from the recounting of Eren himself, we would have him begin by questioning where all this began. The origins of Ymir would come to mind, along with that of his own childhood, and various other events, but he would soon find that uncovering the specific origin of such strife was irrelevant. We would have his discussions with Yelena and later Flock and Historia, where he'd honestly detail his proceedings to them, at least to an extent it would seem. And the trust he places in Historia by even expressing such a thing to her is certainly immense. Eren, during his time in Marley, with his brief interaction with Zeke, would question the biology of the Ackerman clan and their presumed to be instinctual preservation tendencies, which Zeke would thoroughly dismiss, therefore corroborating Armin's prior deductions, that Eren was in fact lying when he said all those horrible things to Mikasa about her lack of free will and her feelings for him being fraudulent. And when Zeke questioned what he would go on to say to her, Eren would dismiss any notion of a happy ending by expressing that he only has 4 years to live at best. So in a way, you could say that this was him trying to get them to let him go, to just move on. Particularly Mikasa, because I mean Armin is on a limited time frame himself. But listen man, I don't know. Right after that, we would have Historia proposing the possibility of her getting pregnant, and I don't know man, Mikasa did finally family zone him, and so maybe, just maybe, I don't know. But after that, we would have Eren mutilating himself for the sake of selling his role as an alien veteran, and goodness gracious, the determination to one's cause required to cut off your own leg with a knife and pierce through your own eyeball with a bullet, regeneration or not, that is insane. Yet at the end of all this, Eren's true desire was for all his friends to live beyond him and live happy lives at that, which is why the whole Sasha thing bothered him so much despite him doing all those crazy things. Which then brings us to the blockade, the combined naval fleet of the world which possessed virtually every major cannon in the world. In the face of the rumbling was perhaps the most unified force in human history seeking to repel it. The belief being that if this miracle of a fleet could not stop the rumbling, then nobody could. And now don't get me wrong, they definitely quelled a few of these things, but this force was absolutely no match for the march of these colossal titans. Resistance was futile. And that incinerary smoke of theirs was insane. The remaining soldiers on land would begin to run and flee, simply delaying the inevitable, as they would then see it. They would see him, the attack titan, Eren Yeager, in his most powerful form, fueled by the very declaration he had made as a child. And so yeah, this has been Attack on Titan Season 4, the final season, Part 2. I don't know how you break up a final season 3 ways, yeah, because we're getting a third part. But somehow the studio figured it out, and there's only so much of the manga left, so I can't help but wonder what they could possibly plan on doing with that final season. Oh, my mistake, I misspoke. I mean the final season part 3. I wonder what they're gonna do with the third part, the third installment of this final season. And you know, I don't imagine I am in the minority when I say this, but this is definitely my least favorite season of Attack on Titan. This is my least favorite installment at this point. We can't even call it a season. My least favorite installment of Attack on Titan. My least favorite body of episodes of Attack on Titan. Which is odd because there are like 2 or 3 episodes I would say are some of the best episodes of Attack on Titan, period. But of course, everything around it, everything else, kind of dragged it down tremendously. Some episodes were a pleasure to watch and some were just a chore to watch, and I wouldn't say that about any other season of Attack on Titan where I felt like it was a chore for me to watch it at all. But you know what's crazy? The way that they're milking Attack on Titan right now, I would not be surprised if we get a final part of the final season, and then we get a movie. People were expecting to not get a part 3, but instead get a movie. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave us both. And I would love to know if there are still people holding their breath for an anime original ending. It's possible, I guess, at this point, if they're gonna have a whole extra season based off only a few chapters of manga, but can't exactly say I'm jumping for joy at the opportunity of expressing any sort of enthusiasm or expectation for this series at this point. But please, now that it's all over, let us know how you feel about it. I remember there were people who were like, oh, get out of the way, Demon Slayer, the real hitters here, Attack on Titan's here. Yeah, no, definitely not. I don't want to pit two greats against one another, but come on, let's settle down. As always, I'm Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.